There is a quiet violence to true focus. Not the kind you find in productivity apps or morning routines, but the raw, elemental force that strips a man of everything he is not until only one thing remains: his purpose. Imagine waking up every day with no confusion about what to do, no craving for approval, no distraction strong enough to steal your attention. Your life is your blade, and your blade is your mind. This is not a fantasy. It was the lived reality of a man who became both warrior and philosopher, a killer and a sage. His name was Miyamoto Musashi. Musashi did not just defeat over 60 men in life-or-death duels. He did not just write the Book of Five Rings, one of the most revered treatises on strategy in the mind. He lived as if each moment were a battlefield. Not metaphorically, literally, because for him, every wasted second was an opening to be cut down, and every act of distraction was a betrayal of the self. But this is not a story about swordsmanship. This is a story about focus, about how a man with nothing, no home, no allegiance, no wealth, became an eternal symbol of mastery, and how in the age of constant noise, we still hunger for what he found. Because let's be honest, in our time, focus feels like a lost art. We sit in front of screens with dozens of tabs open, both on our devices and in our minds. We scroll endlessly, looking for something we cannot name. We jump from one goal to the next, never fully committing to anything. And even when we succeed, it feels hollow. Why? Because we are fragmented, fractured into 1,000 unfinished selves. We begin projects we do not complete. We chase people we do not love. We tell ourselves we are multitasking, but really, we are running. From silence, from uncertainty, from depth. Musashi's life offers a kind of mirror, brutal, cold, and clear. He asks one question without saying a word. What would happen if you focused so deeply, so ruthlessly that everything else fell away? This video is not just about a samurai. It is about reclaiming your center in a world that profits from your distraction. It is about learning what it means to move through life with clarity, intensity, and inner stillness. Because before you master anything, a craft, a relationship, a dream, you must master your attention. And Musashi, the undefeated Ronin, is one of history's most haunting guides to that path. So, let us walk with him, into his battles, his solitude, his philosophy, and perhaps into ourselves. Shall we begin? To understand what Musashi cultivated and what we have lost, we must begin with the world he was forged in. Late 16th century Japan was a land of chaos. The Sengoku period, or Warring States era, had torn the nation apart. Clans fought endlessly. Loyalties shifted like shadows. Power was survival, and survival demanded more than just strength. It required clarity of mind, unwavering purpose, and the ability to act without hesitation. It was in this fire that Musashi emerged. Orphaned young, masterless, a Ronin. He fought his first duel at age 13. He would never lose. Not once. But what set him apart was not just his skill with the blade. It was how he saw the world. In the Book of Five Rings, written towards the end of his life, Musashi wrote not as a warrior looking back on glory, but as a philosopher reflecting on what it takes to walk the path of mastery. The battlefield, for him, was not just a place of violence. It was a crucible of awareness. He called this Heiho, the way of strategy. But it went far beyond tactics or combat. It was about the total discipline of attention, the ability to see clearly in every moment, to be so attuned to reality that no wasted movement, no idle thought could remain hidden. Focus in this context was not productivity. It was survival, and it was spiritual. Musashi lived in a world that demanded presence. There were no second chances in a duel, no edits, no redos. Every breath mattered, every blink. In many ways, the conditions of his time forced this level of focus. But what is extraordinary is that he did not just use it. He studied it. He refined it. He made it into a way of life. And here is where history loops back into our veins. Today, we no longer fight with swords. Our battles are psychological, emotional, existential. But they are no less intense. The weapons have changed, but the war has not. We fight for meaning, for direction, for identity, and, most of all, for attention. Modern life is engineered to fragment us. Social media is built to hijack dopamine. Algorithms are trained to keep us addicted. Work demands multitasking. Relationships become background noise. Even rest is no longer rest. It is productivity disguised as self-care. The result? A slow erosion of will, a disconnection from purpose, a life where we are always busy but rarely present, always stimulated but never still. And so, the focus Musashi practiced, what seemed like a relic of the past, suddenly becomes revolutionary again. In a world of distraction, attention becomes rebellion. What makes Musashi so unique is that he turned focus into a full-bodied philosophy. His writings blend Zen Buddhism, martial discipline, and raw introspection. He believed that the mind must be trained as ruthlessly as the body, that truth could only be seen through direct experience, and that one must cut away all delusions, not just in the opponent, but within oneself. Musashi wrote, "Do not think dishonestly." A simple line. But in context, it is everything. Focus begins with honesty. Brutal, inward honesty. You cannot concentrate on what matters until you admit what does not. You cannot master your craft until you stop lying to yourself about your intentions. And so, we begin to see a through line. Across time, across culture, across language. From the Stoic Marcus Aurelius writing in a tent on the battlefield, to the Sufi mystic Rumi, reminding us to be like a tree and let the dead leaves drop. The same truth echoes. Focus is the art of shedding, of narrowing the self into something precise, intentional, and powerful. In ancient Hindu texts, the concept of dharana, concentration, was described as the gateway to deeper consciousness. In Buddhist tradition, samadhi represented the unbroken flow of awareness, a kind of inner clarity so powerful it dissolved suffering. And in the West, philosophers from Aristotle to Kierkegaard grappled with the same question. How can one live a focused life in a world built to distract? Musashi offers not just answers, but embodiment. He lived in solitude, trained with obsession, refused titles, fame, or luxury. He once slept on the floor of a cave while composing his final teachings. For him, simplicity was not aesthetic. It was necessary. Because every extra thing in your life is another thing you must protect, another thing to worry about. And worry is the enemy of focus. Yet, even as we marvel at his discipline, we must remember, he was still human. He was not born with clarity. He forged it. Through pain, through trial, through years of intentional, lonely work. He was not born focused. He chose focus, every day, and that is the doorway for us. Because while we live in different times, the core challenge remains the same. Can you choose what to care about deeply enough that everything else becomes irrelevant? Can you hold your attention steady in a world built to scatter it? Musashi's life reminds us that mastery is not about talent. It is about intent. It is about the daily, often invisible, choices to say no to what does not serve the path, and in doing so to sharpen the self, not into someone perfect, but into someone clear. That clarity is not ancient. It is eternal. In modern psychology, there is a profound truth that echoes everything Musashi practiced without ever hearing the terms. Your attention is your life. What you focus on not only determines your actions, it shapes your identity. Cognitive science has confirmed what ancient warriors and mystics always suspected. The brain cannot distinguish between reality and repeated focus. What you attend to becomes more real to you, more integrated into your sense of self. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself, responds directly to where your focus goes. Repeated thoughts strengthen neural pathways. Attention, then, is not just a function of the mind, it is the architect of the soul. And here, Musashi becomes more than a historical figure. He becomes an archetype, a living metaphor for what Jung would call the individuated self, the self that has withdrawn projections, shed illusions, and returned to its core. From a Jungian lens, Musashi is not just a man with a sword. He is the warrior archetype in its most integrated form, not violent for the sake of power, but directed, bound by inner law. The warrior, in this sense, does not fight to destroy others but to overcome chaos, first within, then without, and that chaos, in today's world, lives mostly inside us. Consider how often your attention is pulled in multiple directions, at work, at home, even during rest. You are rarely doing just one thing. You are checking messages, glancing at updates, mentally rehearsing tomorrow while numbing the discomfort of now. It feels like you are multitasking, but in truth, your psyche is splintering. Psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, who coined the term flow, described it as a state of complete immersion, a condition where self-consciousness disappears and you become one with the task. Musashi lived in flow, not by accident but by design. Every action, from a duel to a brushstroke of calligraphy, was done with singular attention. This was not aesthetic perfection. It was psychological survival. Modern cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, also supports this approach. It teaches us to become aware of distorted thoughts, to identify cognitive traps, and to return our focus to what is real, present, and actionable. In essence, it trains us to break free from mental loops, just as Musashi taught himself to respond without hesitation, without attachment to outcome. In Sufi teachings, there is a similar practice known as muraqabah, watchfulness, the practice of guarding your attention as though it were sacred, because it is. The soul is not lost all at once, it is lost by inches each time we trade depth for noise, truth for comfort. This is what Musashi knew. Focus is not just a skill, it is a spiritual stance, a way of being that refuses to be pulled apart, a daily decision to hold your center even when the world spins. And perhaps the most radical idea of all is this: you do not need to fight a duel to reclaim that focus. You only need to choose what you are no longer willing to surrender your attention to. Imagine living your entire life in a fog, not because you are blind, but because your eyes never linger long enough to truly see. This is the quiet tragedy of our age. Not that we do not have the tools, not that we lack information or opportunity or connection, but that we cannot hold ourselves still long enough to use them. We live in fragments, notifications, updates, swipes, distractions dressed as urgency. In this storm, the self becomes blurry. You cannot build a meaningful life when your focus is being sold to the highest bidder. When we neglect focus, we do not just become inefficient. We become strangers to ourselves, lost in 1,000 half-finished thoughts, pulled in directions we never consciously chose. And this, more than anything, fractures our identity. Modern psychology describes this as attentional residue, the lingering mental fog that occurs when we switch from task to task without closure. Over time, this residue builds up. We feel tired without effort, overwhelmed without movement, anxious without threat. The brain, unable to complete its focus cycles, starts treating everything as unfinished business. Rest becomes impossible. Satisfaction slips through our fingers. And what of purpose? A life without focus cannot sustain purpose. You may feel inspired one moment, but that flame burns out the next, smothered by noise. Vision requires stillness. You must be able to listen to yourself before you can walk a path that is truly yours. This is not merely personal, it is relational. Without focus, intimacy becomes diluted. In conversation, we are rarely present. We listen to reply, not to understand. We skim our partner's pain while checking our phones. We lose the sacredness of human connection, not through cruelty but through chronic inattention. And the other person feels it. You know when someone is not truly with you. It registers in the body like an ache. That ache becomes resentment distance. Loneliness, even in love. Even our creativity suffers. Ideas demand solitude, time, and space to evolve. But when we are always reacting, always consuming, we never give birth to anything new. We become echoes of other people's lives, scrolling endlessly through what they have done, what they have built, what they think, and slowly we forget what we believe, what we want, what we are capable of. And still deeper than that, there is the spiritual wound, because the inability to focus is not just a cognitive issue, it is existential. It leaves you feeling untethered. The days blur. The years collapse. You wonder where your time went. You wonder why you feel so hollow. But you do not see the slow erosion underneath. Every lost moment, every mental shortcut, every time you abandoned what mattered for what was easier, that is where the soul began to drift. Musashi understood this long before neuroscience confirmed it. He saw the consequences of a divided mind in the most immediate way possible. Death. In a duel, hesitation kills. Distraction kills. Delusion kills. But even off the battlefield, he saw how lack of focus poisoned the spirit. He believed that the path to greatness required what he called the mind that is not divided, a mind unified in purpose, not scattered by desire. He wrote that you must know the smallest things and the biggest things, the shallowest things and the deepest things. To do that, your attention must be wide enough to see context, yet sharp enough to see detail. That is no easy task. It takes training. It takes devotion. But without it, we live only on the surface of our lives. And this is where many people live. Not in deep pain, not in crisis, but in chronic distraction. It is a quieter suffering, but no less tragic, because it disguises itself as normal. Everyone is busy, everyone is tired, everyone is scrolling, so we assume it is just life. But it is not life. It is a life deferred. This is not a call for perfection. No one can be focused all the time, not even Musashi, but it is a call for reverence, for choosing your attention with the same care you would choose your lover, your friends, your dreams. Because what you give your attention to, you feed. What you feed grows, and what grows becomes your life. When we fail to honor this, the cost is not just wasted time, it is wasted self. And the tragedy is not that we cannot change, but that we never paused long enough to realize we needed to. If you have felt the weight of distraction, the fog of a scattered mind, or the ache of lost purpose, know this. Focus is not a distant ideal reserved for warriors or sages. It is a skill, a practice, a choice you can cultivate. One moment, one breath at a time. Musashi's life teaches us that focus is forged through deliberate habits, not luck or talent. The same rings true today. But the tools available to us now blend timeless wisdom with modern science in ways that can accelerate the journey. First, let us begin with presence. The foundation of focus is presence, the ability to be fully in the here and now. Mindfulness meditation, rooted in ancient Buddhist practices, invites us to train our attention like a muscle. Sitting quietly, observing the breath or the sensations of the body, we learn to notice when the mind wanders, and gently bring it back. This is Murakaba, the watchfulness Musashi embodied on the battlefield. The goal is not to empty the mind, but to deepen awareness of what is real and immediate. Try this simple practice. Set a timer for 5 minutes. Sit quietly and focus on your breath. When your mind drifts, inevitably it will. Acknowledge the thought without judgment and return to your breath. Over time, this rewires your brain, building pathways for sustained attention. Next, embrace the power of deliberate practice. Musashi fought thousands of duels, but his mastery came from years of intentional training where every movement had purpose. In your life, this means approaching your tasks with clear intention. Break your work into focused intervals, like the Pomodoro technique, where you work deeply for 25 minutes, then rest for 5. This method leverages the brain's natural rhythms and avoids burnout. Journaling is another powerful tool. Writing your thoughts down helps externalize mental clutter and clarifies what truly matters. Musashi himself was a poet and calligrapher. His art was a form of meditation, a way to channel focus and discipline beyond the sword. When you journal, ask yourself, what am I truly committed to? What distractions am I willing to let go of? What small step can I take today toward my vision? But focus is not only about restriction, it is about freedom. Stoic philosophy teaches us to distinguish between what we can control and what we cannot. Musashi echoed this when he wrote about accepting life's unpredictability while holding firm to your path. This mindset reduces anxiety that often pulls our attention away from what matters. When you find yourself overwhelmed, remind yourself, I control my actions, not outcomes. This empowers focus rooted in calm resilience. Movement and solitude also play a role. Musashi wandered remote mountains to train not only his body but his mind. Physical exercise, especially activities that require coordination, like martial arts, yoga, or dance, grounds attention in the body and sharpens awareness. Likewise, regular periods of solitude, free from screens and noise, restore mental clarity. Consider scheduling no-device times where you retreat from distractions, allowing your mind to settle and recharge. Finally, practice self-compassion. Musashi's journey was not one of ruthless perfectionism, but of continuous growth. He embraced failure as a teacher and understood that mastery unfolds over time. When your focus falters, do not beat yourself up. Acknowledge the lapse, learn from it, and return gently to your practice. In essence, cultivating ultimate focus is about creating a lifestyle that honors your attention as a sacred resource. It requires saying no to the many easy temptations that fragment your mind and saying yes to a smaller set of meaningful commitments that fuel your deepest growth. As you begin to weave these practices into your daily life, reflect on this. What distractions am I willing to shed today to reclaim my clarity? What is the single most important thing my attention deserves right now? Remember, focus is not a destination, but a journey, a lifelong conversation between who you are and who you wish to become. Musashi did not fight to impress others or to win fleeting fame. He fought to know himself fully, to sharpen his presence until it became a weapon and a shield. You, too, can sharpen your presence. One breath, one moment, one choice. As we come to the close of this exploration, pause for a moment and consider the quiet power of focused attention. Miyamoto Musashi's life was not just about swordsmanship or dueling prowess. It was about something far deeper, a relentless commitment to knowing himself and mastering the forces that pulled him apart. His story is a mirror reflecting an eternal truth. The battle for focus is the battle for the self. In our modern world, flooded with endless stimuli and competing demands, Musashi's path feels more urgent than ever. Distraction is the great thief, not of possessions or status, but of our inner clarity and purpose. When our minds scatter, so does our sense of who we truly are. But the good news is that this battle is not lost. Focus is a skill, a practice, and above all, a way of being. Like Musashi, we can cultivate a mind that is not divided, a mind that holds presence and purpose in balance, a mind that sees the smallest details without losing sight of the whole. Throughout history, from samurai to sages, from mystics to modern psychologists, The message has been clear. Attention is sacred. What you give your attention to shapes your reality, your identity, and ultimately, your destiny. So here is the invitation. An invitation to reclaim your focus not as a tool of productivity alone, but as an act of self-love. To choose where your energy flows, what thoughts you nurture, and which distractions you release. To move through your days with intention, presence, and a quiet, unwavering resolve. Ask yourself, if Miyamoto Musashi were here, standing beside me in this moment, what would he remind me to focus on? What part of my life needs this ultimate attention? The kind that sharpens, steadies, and transforms. The path of focus is not easy. It demands patience, discipline, and courage. But it is also deeply rewarding. Because in mastering your attention, you master your story. You become the artist of your own life, painting with precision and purpose rather than chaos and chance. As you move forward, remember that this is a journey. Sometimes slow, sometimes challenging, always evolving. Each moment you choose focus, you step closer to becoming the person you were meant to be. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson Musashi offers us. The ultimate fight is within, and the ultimate victory is self-mastery. When you are ready, I will prepare the final call to action section to inspire your audience to continue this journey of focus and growth. You have walked alongside Miyamoto Musashi today, felt the weight of his sword, the sharpness of his mind, and the depth of his focus. But this is more than a story from the past. It is a living invitation for you and me, here and now. If you have felt the pull of distraction, the restless scattering of attention, or the ache of a life half-lived, you are not alone. We all wrestle with these forces. Yet, within each of us lies the capacity to reclaim our focus, to sharpen our presence, and to live with purpose and clarity. This channel is a space for that journey, a space where we explore deep psychology, timeless wisdom, and practical tools that help us grow, not just intellectually, but emotionally and spiritually. Here, we are not chasing perfection or quick fixes. We are walking the path of self-mastery together. So, if you find value in this conversation, if you want to cultivate a mind that is steady, a heart that is open, and a life that is deeply your own, I invite you to subscribe. Join this community of seekers who refuse to settle for distraction and superficiality. Let us explore ancient teachings and modern science. Let us reflect deeply and act intentionally. Let us support each other in reclaiming the sacredness of our attention and the power of our presence. Because the journey to ultimate focus is not a solitary one. It is a shared path, one breath and one moment at a time. Are you ready to step into that power? To become who you truly are beneath the noise and chaos? If so, welcome. You are in the right place. Let us continue this journey together. Thank you for being here.